Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya and I'm the daughter.
Just a little while ago, I had my phone buzzed. I answered it.
Yeah?
Somebody sneezed on the other end.
Oh,
They blew their nose. So I hung
gross.
up. Another cold call.
3 years ago, we recorded a podcast that we think might be one of the most important podcasts that we've ever recorded. But of course, we were just getting started. The podcast itself, the episode didn't get a lot of listeners because we didn't know how to title it very well or to help people understand what we were talking about. We titled it The Sun and the Wind. Of course, who's going to click that? Because nobody knows what it's about. But when you know what it's about, it's one of the most critical pieces that I think we've ever talked about, and that is, how do we help people that are anti-LGBTQ activists or skeptics understand that we are just living our most natural lives? And that's the conversation that you and I had back then.
A lot of that has to do with your tone of your voice when you are actually approaching someone. And instead of approaching them with a calm voice, it becomes argumentative. And that accelerates like the conversation accelerates. And it continues to grow and grow and grow until you're not able to communicate with one another.
When we recorded this, we felt like the whole world felt so polarized. Well, looking back here from our perspective now in 2026, we had no idea how polarized things would get.
Yes.
We've gone through the Charlie Kirk assassination, and of course, you and I responded to that immediately against any kind of political violence. We want to tone down the rhetoric, and the way that we do that is by stopping, by slowing down, by learning to listen to one another. And this episode was one of the very first ones that you and I ever recorded where we gave some real practical advice on how to do that. I feel like this sums up what our whole podcast is about. And I think if you're coming to this and you never played this one from our early days, you're going to get a lot out of this one.
The wind and the sun were talking one day, and they started to say, who's really got the power here? Who has the ability to control? And they said, well, let's have a contest. They looked down on Earth, and they saw a man walking along. He was wearing a jacket. They said, okay, the wind, thinking, I know where my power is, says, let's see who can get that guy to take his jacket off. I'll go first. The sun said, oh, okay, I'll watch. So the guy walked along, and the wind came up, and it blew, and it blew. And the more it blew, the tighter the guy hung onto his coat. And he blew, and he blew, and he blew. He even blew to the point where he actually blew the man off the path, but yet the guy hung on to his coat. He was so tight, and the tighter he held it, the more the wind was getting frustrated and couldn't get that jacket off of that man. Finally, he gave up. He said, okay, your turn. The sun came out, and the guy kind of relaxed a little bit, and he kept walking along the path, and as the sun came along, it felt a little warmer, and pretty soon he opened his jacket up. The guy walked along, and he was apparently quite happy and walking along and relaxed, and suddenly the sun was warm enough that he took his jacket off. Who had the power? Who had the power to convince this man to take off his jacket? Would he be convinced by the power of the wind? Instead, as the wind was forcing and forcing and forcing, he just became more resistant. But when the sun came out and gently made him feel comfortable, it was the sun that won the day.
Dad, as you and I were preparing for this podcast, we both together saw a couple of things. We saw, first of all, a mailer piece that was designed to motivate people to be
supportive
of a group that has an agenda that's more of a conservative agenda. And then we watched a video together that we didn't know this beforehand, but happened to be pointing out the group that was in the mailer and saying what terrible, evil, horrible people these were. What a hate group they were, and the only motives that they could have is that they really want to hurt in the worst way possible all LGBTQ people around.
And the person who was making the presentation was doing it in an argumentative way.
Really thinking that they had the right, the other group was 100% wrong as you can be, and all they needed to do was present the facts really with an air of arrogance.
Yesterday morning, I was at a board meeting, and a discussion came up about changing the date of something. The date that was set previously that had been done for a few years, someone who was in charge said, we're going to change that date and move it 2 weeks away.
This is of a service organization that you're involved in.
Correct. There was a big discussion about it, and it started off fairly comfortably. The people were discussing it. That went on for a few minutes until the original organizer jumped in. Instead of telling them why he felt that it was better to do this on a specific date that he had originally planned, he came on like the wind. He came on strong and powerful in an argumentative tone that just signaled to the other people, I need to take a defensive stance. His argument, well, I agreed with the points he was making. I was just listening, by the way. I wasn't a part of either side. I agreed with the points that he was making, but I knew he wasn't going to win anybody over. He wasn't going to get anywhere with that. It was the kind of situations that I see happening every day somewhere. It's someone who thinks by taking this argumentative stance, by saying right up front, you don't know what you're talking about, and here's the deal right here, or by cutting the other person down, or by telling you why you don't know what you're talking about, I am the authority here. I don't think that's the way to win an argument. As a matter of fact, I think it's the way to create an argument.
Radical conflict does not bring agreement.
Right.
Ever. Ever. The only way to win an argument is to stop having an argument.
Yes.
You don't, if you are adversarial to the person and you come at them with this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, and you raise your voice and it keeps going higher and higher. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody's been yelling at you and you thought, oh, they had it right all along and I've been wrong, and you change your tune? Never. If somebody wants to try to convince you, or if you want to try to convince somebody else, the only way to do it is to stop being argumentative, and instead of confronting the person head on, to come alongside them instead. Unless you can give the position of the other person in a way that when you say it, they say, yes, I think you understand me. You haven't earned the right to give your own position.
And those who want to argue in a radical way, if they don't disagree with you, instead of arguing with you about that, they will deflect the situation to something else. For example, you can say, well, the problem here is X or Y or Z. And if they can't deny that, instead, they will often deflect it by saying, yeah, but what about this other thing over here? What about that? I wonder if I was stopped by a cop for speeding, and he said, I'm going to write you a ticket. And I said to him, but what about all those people who passed me on that? Well, what about them? How come you're not after them? Do you think he wouldn't write me a ticket because of that? I think he would write the ticket anyway.
Now, I want to be clear that when we're talking about this, we're not saying that you just have to always have a good attitude when injustice is happening. I'm not saying that you just, well, unless you come and you're always completely calm and collected, you never have the right to speak up. But what we are saying is that so you have the right, if you are part of a marginalized group and you are being mistreated, there is a time where you say, this is wrong how we're being treated, and to speak up. But the point is, that's not going to convince someone. And once you're done in that point of, I'm fed up, I'm done, when you decide what we really want to do is bring around the people that are against us, we want to bring them around to our side. The way to do that is by speaking to them respectfully, by going forward to them and saying, let's see what we can do together, and not by coming and saying, let me tell you why you suck.
The other thing that would happen is if you come on, let's go to our particular podcast here that we're talking about. We are talking about LGBTQ society. And if we're radical about that, I don't think we're going to win anybody over. They have to understand that we're just normal people like everybody else, that we're just allies, and that together we just want a normal life. We want normal relationships. We're not out to trying to change them. We're out just trying to be ourselves.
When you're playing a sports game, they always tell you to keep your eye where?
On the ball.
Keep your eye on the ball. And so often in these conversations, we forget what the ball is, that you end up getting involved in, well, that person did this to me and this person did that to me. The ball is, we want to bring about peace. We want to bring about equality for everyone here. We want to bring about so that we are all getting along and we have harmony and we have peace with one another. And when we lose sight of that, we create more conflict. And conflict doesn't solve problems. Conflict creates problems.
Yes, we see that in politics. We see that in situations when people have issues with the school system, whatever it happens to be. The city council, and I guess they say you can't fight City Hall. And City Hall happens to be the person that you disagree with on the other side. I think that's where it's at.
I fought the law.
And the law won. I'll get my guitar.
I'm Chuck Reynolds, and I started listening to Transcendent because Joe is my friend. I keep listening because I have friends, colleagues, and family members who are part of the LGBTQ community, and I want to better understand their struggles and perspectives. I have become a supporter because I believe Joe and Raya are truly helping to preserve relationships and save lives. Join me in supporting Transcendent. Just go to transcendent.com, click on support, and select the amount you'd like to give each month. It can be as little as $3, and you can cancel at any time.
You can disagree without being disagreeable, and that's really the message we all need to hear. You've heard so many times, listen to the other side. We all hear that, but we all don't do it. I don't always do it, and I'll admit that. I don't always listen to the other side because I'm right. So therefore, I don't listen to the other side. And so that can allow us to be disagreeable because you don't know what you're talking about. This whole idea of conflict often happens not because each person thinks that they're wrong, each person maybe thinks that they're right, or they're just reacting to something they don't like about what you've said, or maybe they haven't even encountered anything with you before at all. But when they're upset about something, right out of the gate, they're going to come on strong and they're going to hit you with something. I remember something that happened when you were a little kid. I would say you might have been 6 or 7, maybe even younger. We were at the dinner table, and you got up. We had finished eating the dinner, but we were going to have ice cream.
Ooh.
And so you got up to help Mom. She was over by the refrigerator getting out the ice cream. And, oh, can I help? Can I help? And she said, sure. And you came over to her and she gave you the bowl of ice cream, and you had a big smile on your face, and you picked it up, and you were coming over to the table, and you were holding it up in the air pretty high. But you were smiling at me, and you were looking toward the kitchen table as you were walking toward it, not looking at the dish, not doing what kids would do. They're looking at where they're at, not being concerned. I saw what was happening, and that dish was starting to tip, and that ice cream was going to go. And I said, hold it up. And you kept going, and you were smiling, and then that ice cream slipped out and fell on the floor, and I said, now you dropped it on the floor. And you were just crushed. And you put that bowl down, and you came back, and you sat down at the table, and you didn't say anything for a little while, and then you said, I'm never going to eat ice cream again. I'm telling you, that just tore my heart apart. I realized how ridiculous I was. What a stupid thing I did. You didn't have to tell me, Dad, you did a stupid thing. You showed me.
Wow. Well, I'm glad I don't remember that story.
And I remember that, and I felt just terrible. It was a lesson that I learned about how to approach people when they're doing something wrong.
Sure. I think we can all imagine how I must have felt in that time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just terrible. And I was so close to you anyway, and I sure didn't want to hurt your feelings. And sometimes we do that when we're approaching somebody else. So maybe you're a dad out there listening, and maybe you just heard from your daughter or your son about something that you didn't like, about the whole idea that they might be coming out to you. How do you approach it? Well, I'll tell you what. The first thing I would tell you don't do is don't say, no, you dropped it on the floor.
There's a psychological principle called the fundamental attribution error. And I don't know who came up with this name for it. But what it is we as humans, when we mess up or do something wrong, we know that we had good intentions and we know it was just the situation or the problem. But when somebody else fails to do what they were supposed to do, that shows a flaw in their character. But the flaw, when we mess up, it's not a flaw in our character, but when they mess up, it's because they intended to do it. Even when you know this, you still, the people, the researchers themselves that have been trying to educate people on the fundamental attribution error themselves have realized I do this all the time, and learning about it doesn't make me any better.
You made me think of something that happened when I was a kid that I haven't thought of for literally 65 or 70 years. It's that long ago. I wasn't 10 years old yet. And I was in the bathroom, and there was a little handheld mirror there that I was playing with, and I dropped it on the floor, and it broke. And my mother came in, and she saw that I broke that mirror, and she yelled about it. And I looked at her, and without thinking or anything else, I said, but just a couple of days ago, you dropped a cup and broke it, and you didn't yell about that. And she turned around and walked away. That was pretty good.
That's exactly
Not too bad for an 8-year-old.
So oftentimes when we're getting into what they dub the culture wars, what happens, the people on your side of the culture wars are all right and looking out for people, looking out for the most vulnerable in our society. But the people on the other side, they are just really bad people, and all they want to do is hurt the most vulnerable in our society. And if you watch these narratives on either side, you see that they're villainizing the other people. They're saying that person that disagree with me, they are not just that they see things differently, but they are actively a bad person. They are an evil person, and they are trying to hurt people. And the reality is they're not. When you look at the people that are saying, we have some concerns about LGBTQ issues. Now, I have strong disagreements with the people that will speak vocally, and especially the people that are putting forward legislation and trying to do things. But I'll tell you what, if I were to approach them and sit down and listen and say, tell me your story. Tell me, why are you so angry about it? I'll tell you what, it's probably because they have an idea in their mind of what they think things are like, how they think LGBTQ people are, and probably don't know us, have created a narrative in their own mind and are imagining children being hurt by us, or imagining the worst case scenario. Anytime you imagine the worst case scenario about your neighbor or about anyone else in our society, you imagine the worst case scenario, you're always painting the worst picture.
I can remember one time your sister told, she was in high school. Maybe she was a sophomore. She was working at the local ice cream stand. And another kid was working there that was about the same age she was, and he lost his job for stealing. But she told me, oh, he got fired. And I said, what did he get fired for? And she said, well, about the worst thing you could possibly imagine. I said, oh, no, she knocked down the boss and she killed him. No, it wasn't.
Not that bad.
I guess it wasn't the worst thing I could imagine.
As you and I watched this video response to the people on the other side, I expected that we would agree with this video. It was a video really talking about LGBTQ rights and talking about how important it is for us to defend these rights. And yet you and I both had the same feeling of, this is not representing me.
And it's not winning anybody over.
And that's what we want to do. I'll tell you what, the conflict does do one thing, unfortunately, and I wish it didn't, but it does get people out to vote.
Yeah.
And it does get people motivated to stay engaged, which is why you feel so terrible when you go on Facebook. I'll tell you what, I don't even like to go on Facebook anymore because it's always people that are mad about something, and Facebook figures out when something makes you mad. Facebook knows, oh, this is making you mad enough. I've noticed you comment on this every time.
Oh.
One of our relatives posts things frequently that I disagree with. And for a while, I felt like if I don't say something, no one else is going to say anything. So I would post things, I would respond, and this relative would never respond back. So I would just say, that's not really right what you're saying there. And it was always nice and civil. But then Facebook said, oh, you're engaging a lot, so I'm going to show you more of this content.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated, and I finally had to go on and say, you know what, Facebook, how about let's just not show me this person's posts anymore? Because this is not helping me, and I'm not changing anybody's mind, and they're not changing anybody's mind.
I've done that a long time ago. When I post anything on Facebook, it's usually just a humorous one-liner.
Yeah.
And it's not at all political or anything else. I stay away from all of that. And I don't see a whole lot of that right now. And do you know why? Because I've unfriended a lot of those people.
Although you do offend a lot of people with some of those jokes. And I always try to respond back to you with something equally offensive.
Yeah,
some equally offensive pun.
Yeah.
We do have a good time with those, though.
Yeah, they're puns.
But radical conflict doesn't bring about that healing when you approach somebody in a way that respects them, that values them as a human being, that values that they care about people and they're not out to hurt you. When you approach them in good faith and you demonstrate that you're approaching them in good faith, that opens the door for them to approach you in good faith. And how are we going to win anybody over if we don't do that? I'm not looking to win elections. I'm not looking to get people out to go vote or to go get angry enough that they go take action. What I'm looking to do is to have people understand that people like me are just like people like you. And we just want to get along.
Now that I'm approaching 80, I have become a much more middle of the road about everything. Instead of really going to one side or the other about anything, whether it happens to be political or whether it happens to be some other issue. I think for my age, I tend to look at both sides and I don't get too concerned about anything. My daughter, the other daughter, always says, it'll work out. It always does. And she's right.
Of course, that doesn't mean that the middle, by virtue of being the middle, is always the right way.
Right.
But it does mean that people on either side of the middle are probably good people. I just want to put food on the table for my kids. I want to make sure that my family gets along all right. I want to make sure that we're all together, and I'm really worried about all of us being safe. And if you can address those concerns first, you're going to have an audience. And that's how we start to get along.
You know, I remember you saying that same thing a long time ago when you were first out of high school and you were talking about trying to help people out. You first said, well, I can try to help teach them these things and that things, but they're thinking, yeah, but I need some food here first. This is what I need. And you told me at that point, you have to address those needs first. Then you can go to the next step and get some education and move forward. And once you do that, you've begun to want to win them over. But you've got to win them over with what is the biggest thing that's staring them in the face that they think is going to create the biggest problem for them.
We start by addressing one another as human beings. And if we start by addressing one another as a problem, all that's going to do is create problems. But when we address one another as human beings, that's how we start to come together. Which are you? Are you the wind or are you the sun? As you go forth in your life, what do you want to do? I hope that we've encouraged you to bring a little more sunlight to your week this week.
Well, I want to tell you, Raya, you used to be the son, but now you're the daughter.
So that was 3 years ago, and honestly, we still believe every word of that.
Oh, absolutely.
We've learned a lot when we see the legislation targeting our community, when it feels like people are debating our right to exist. It can be so tempting to just want to come out swinging, and that is completely understandable. There is a place for that. There are certainly times where we need to stand up and take a political stand. I have done that. Many of us had gone out and attended protests or various political gatherings. But when we're talking about relationships, we are not trying to win political points with our loved ones. That never draws you closer. Right. And I believe that more strongly than ever. So you've got a father or a mother or an aunt or an uncle who watches political TV all the time, and it's all that they can talk about, and it's always bringing up things. How do we communicate with them, especially when we feel like they are being the wind all of the time? Well, the best thing that we can do is put on our best sunshine face and say, let me bring some warmth to you and to your life right now. That's not an easy thing to do, but I can tell you when we do it, it is a powerful thing that we can do.
It works the other way, too. Sometimes you might notice yourself that you are becoming the wind, and maybe you feel the wind rising inside of you, I encourage you to ask yourself, what would the sun do instead?
We have been trying every single Monday since we recorded that and even earlier to be your voice of positivity. We're grateful to have you coming back here every single Monday morning. If you want to stay in touch with us, you can join our email newsletter. Go to dispatch.transcendent.com. And if you'd like to reach out to us, you can send us an email, transcendent@gmail.com. We read every one.
And with that,
We'll see you Monday. I got a call from a telemarketer the other day. Turned out the guy was from Egypt.
Egypt?
Yeah, it turns out it was just a pyramid scheme.